As of May 2026, more than 80% of the code merged into Anthropic's own code base was written by Claude, by the AI, not the engineers. That's not a leak or a hot take. Anthropic published it themselves inside a 9,000 word essay with a quietly alarming title: When AI Builds Itself. The argument is simple and unsettling. AI has started to automate the one job that produces better AI than building AI. And the people closest to the frontier think the next stage, where systems improve themselves, could arrive before any of our institutions are ready. So I sat down and read the entire thing, footnotes and all, so you don't have to. Here's what's genuinely real, what's quietly hype, and the part near the end they clearly hoped you'd skim past. First, what they're actually describing. The piece is by Marina Favaro and Jack Clark, and the phrase at its center is recursive self improvement. The definition is precise: AI systems that can fully autonomously design, develop, and train improved versions of themselves with no human direction. A loop that feeds itself, where each generation builds the next, faster than the last. We are not there yet. But the whole essay is about how the distance to there is shrinking. And here's what makes the document so strange: this isn't a critic shouting from outside the building. It's one of the labs actually building frontier AI, publicly drawing the map of the road it is on, and warning that the road may end somewhere it can't fully control. When the people with the most to gain start describing the risk in this much detail, it's worth slowing down to read. Their case isn't vibes, it's a ladder of receipts, and it's worth climbing one rung at a time. Rewind just a few years. In 2021, humans wrote essentially all the code at Anthropic. By 2023, AI wrote snippets that humans copied in. By 2025, agents were writing whole files on their own. And today, more than 80% of everything they merge is authored by Claude. The humans increasingly review and direct it. The downstream effect is just as stark. In the second quarter of 2026, the typical Anthropic engineer was merging 8 times as much code per day as they were in 2024. 8 times, not 8%. That is not a tool getting a little better. That's the nature of the job changing underneath the people doing it. But raw code volume isn't the scary number. This is. The length of a task an AI can reliably finish on its own, start to end, has been doubling roughly every 4 months. Let that compound. In March 2024, Claude Opus 3 could handle a software task that takes a human about 4 minutes. A year later, Claude Sonnet 3.7 was managing tasks that took about an hour and a half. A year after that, Claude Opus 4.6, 12-hour tasks, 4 minutes to 12 hours in 2 years. If a line keeps doubling every 4 months, it doesn't creep, it explodes. That single curve is the entire spine of Anthropic's argument, and it's the thing they want you to stare at and then extrapolate forward. Now, here's where it turns in on itself. Increasingly, the work the AI is doing is AI research. The benchmarks built to measure that are saturating. Coding tests went from low single digits to effectively maxed out in about 2 years. A research reproduction test went from 20% to saturating in 15 months. And on the hard, open ended stuff, optimizing code, running experiments, Claude Opus 4 hit roughly a 3 times speed up over a baseline. An internal model they refer to as Mythos Preview hit about 52 times. For comparison, they say a skilled human researcher gets about 4 times in 4 to 8 hours. When the machine that builds the machine gets 52 times faster at building, the loop has started to bend back on itself. And it's not just lab benchmarks, it's shipped work. In an April 2026 project, AI agents recovered 97% of the performance gap between a weak model and a strong one, almost entirely on their own. 800 cumulative hours of work, about $18,000 of compute. In another, Claude shipped over 800 fixes that cut a class of API errors by a factor of 1,000. The engineer overseeing it estimated a human would have needed 4 years. In a March poll of 130 Anthropic researchers, the median said this internal model made them 4 times as productive. And in a security project they call Glasswing, in its first weeks, it surfaced more than 10,000 high and critical severity vulnerabilities. The receipts are real. Hold that thought because the framing around them is not innocent. So here's the honest part the brochure skips. Read those numbers again and notice something. Almost all of them are Anthropic grading its own homework, internal benchmarks, internal surveys, an unreleased model named Mythos that you and I cannot test. Genuinely impressive, but self reported, and self reported by the company with the most to gain from you believing it. A second asterisk Claude's code only reached parity with human code recently. Late last year, the paper admits it was measurably worse. And the third is a law, not an opinion. Amdal's law. Speed up one stage of a process, and the bottleneck doesn't vanish, it just moves somewhere else. The paper concedes this directly. The human advantage was never typing speed, it's judgment. And you can't benchmark your way out of that as easily as a coding test. With that curve and those caveats on the table, Anthropic lays out 3 futures and tells you which one they believe. Future 1 The trend stalls. Scaling hits diminishing returns. New architectures don't arrive in time. Chips and energy become a hard wall, and today's capabilities simply diffuse across the economy. They think this is the least likely. Future 2 Compounding gains continue. AI development becomes substantially automated. Humans set the direction, and the AI executes and evaluates. And a 100-person company can operate like a 100,000-person one. This, they say, is the most likely path given current evidence. Future 3 Full recursive self improvement. AI designs and refines its own successors. Progress is bounded only by available compute, and humans are pushed to oversight and verification. On that path, in their own words, the alignment outcome is deeply uncertain. And here's the part that actually stayed with me, buried past the charts, in the quotes. Because the most striking thing in a paper full of exponential graphs isn't the capability, it's the people. Anthropic's own researchers describe the emotional reality of it. Working alongside something that is, in their words, automated and better and faster than I ever will be. They describe each task handed off to the AI as a lost bid for human collaboration. A small moment where a person could have learned and grown, given to a machine instead. And the timeline underneath it is blunt. Work that takes a skilled person days could come into range this year. In 2027, tasks that take a person weeks. Read that as a worker instead of an investor, and the question changes. It stops being what can it build and becomes what's still mine to do. Then comes the strangest move in the whole document. A frontier AI lab arguing in public for the ability to slow itself down. But read it carefully, because it's not what a headline would tell you. Anthropic explicitly rejects a unilateral pause. One lab stopping alone, they argue, accomplishes almost nothing. It doesn't stop the technology, it just changes who's in the lead. What they're actually calling for is a verifiable, coordinated slowdown. Multiple labs across multiple countries with mechanisms to actually confirm the others have genuinely stopped, plus clear triggers, lift conditions, and arbitration. They openly admit verification here is far harder than it is for nuclear weapons. And their new Anthropic Institute says it will research exactly that: verification, arms control lessons, and alignment. You can be skeptical of the motive, but a company asking to be slowed down is not a thing you see every day. So strip away both the doom and the hype. What do you actually do with this on a Monday morning? Their own bottleneck analysis is the cheat sheet, and it's oddly reassuring. The durable human edge, by their own admission, is taste and judgment. Choosing which problems are worth solving at all, recognizing a dead end before you waste a month on it, and setting direction for systems that now execute faster than you can think. So stop competing with the model on raw output. You will lose that race, and the paper basically says so. Instead, get fluent at driving it, orchestrating agents, reviewing their work critically, and owning the decision about what actually matters. The people who thrive in every one of these three futures aren't the fastest coders. They're the ones with the best judgment about where to point all of this. I turned the entire 9,000 word piece into a free one page decode. The three futures, the real receipts, the asterisks they buried, and a short checklist for sharpening the one edge that survives all of this, your judgment. No footnotes required. To get it, just comment the word recursive and I'll send it straight to you. Bite size AI drops on Instagram, the deep dives live here on YouTube. And if what you want is the honest read on where AI is actually heading, not the hype, not the panic, just someone who did the costly homework, subscribe. Because the gap between the people who understand this curve and the people who don't is about to become the most important gap there is.